Hey, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Sunday Social Podcast. I am Derek.
I'm Jonathan.
And today we have a topic talking all about ways that you can come up with better content ideas for your church. Now, to get prepared for this episode, I asked ChatGPT what are some good ideas, and I want to go over those. And as we were talking before this episode, Jonathan was like, "Well, I don't know if I agree with some of those." And he was like, why don't we just talk about that on the podcast to see, to see what we don't agree with about it. So here's what I have. Let me pull it up. So the first one, ChatGPT said, was to understand your audience, right? Second one was to reflect on key themes like your sermon series. Maybe there's an event coming up. And then the third one it said was to encourage community engagement, meaning like Q&As, feedback, asking your congregation what they want to see. So
how do we create better content for our social media?
Yes.
Here's what ChatGPT says, but here's what we're going to say.
Yes. So what do you think? What don't you agree with it first off?
Yeah. First of all, the number 3, encourage community engagement. I feel like if you're watching this, the idea of doing a Q&A, you're like, okay, that's frustrating because I know I'm going to get 0 responses, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reality. The reality right now is that social media across the board is getting less engagement. We're in the era of the lurker, and people are commenting less. They're sharing. They're doing things more in the DMs. They're not doing as many things publicly viewable. So asking a Q&A like, hey, some sort of engaging question, or what are your questions you have about this? It's probably not going to get a great response. So my perspective is to, number 1 is totally it. Know your audience. Know your audience enough to be able to create content where you don't have to ask them what kind of content you should create. Because I think that's the idea, right? Like everything that I post, and I talk about this all the time, is relatable, right? Like I know my audience enough to create content that they say, that's so me, or that's my friend, or that's like, you see yourself in the content.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to creating really good content on social media. And that changes. Like you're going to have a different approach for your church than another church. It's also a different approach than the whole like just viral video trend approach, right? Like that's low hanging fruit, but there's nothing relatable about that. It's just pure entertainment, but there's no actual like, what's the value of it? Except for like, hey, come to church, jump into a pile of chairs and then say, come to church this Sunday, right? Like, is that good content? Did it go viral? Yes. But is it good content? I don't know.
So, okay, I want to play devil's advocate here.
I love it.
Okay. Because I know on your personal account, you do Q&As on your stories.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the purpose of those if it's not for coming up with content ideas?
So here's the thing that's tough for brands, is that brands are faceless entities.
Right.
So if you do a Q&A, who's answering that Q&A? Who am I even talking to? So there's one way to say, hey, this is a takeover from Pastor Todd, if that's your pastor. And say, Pastor Todd is answering the questions today, right? That puts a face to it, and you're going to get a few more responses. I also have a bigger audience than a lot of churches.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. But so like I have a pool of 68,000 people that could potentially watch my stories. How many people actually watch it? Anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 people, right? For a typical story. So 2,000 people, now I get maybe 20 questions. And I'm also really good at like specifying which topics I'm addressing. And that's another thing. I mean, if we're talking, let's get into that rabbit hole. One of the things I tried a while ago, and a lot of people adopt it, and I love it, is whenever you ask a question, tell people topics that they can focus on. There's this thing called decision paralysis, where when there are too many options available to you, you can't make a decision. But if you suggest 4 things, so let's say you're in a sermon series on relationships. So, hey, ask a question about, friendships or bad breakups or toxic behavior. Give them a few options, and you are going to be a lot more likely to get specific questions because it primes the pump, if you will, right? So, yes, you can ask questions, but that's also, I've created a lot of a culture of back and forth between the people who follow me, right? Like they're used to me answering questions. They're used to talking to me. I respond to their DMs. I respond to their comments pretty quickly. So there's a lot more engagement. Unfortunately, a lot of churches, small audience, They don't check their social media accounts. They don't actually engage with people.
Right.
They don't know who they're talking to. The user doesn't know who they're talking to if they leave a comment. So all of those things I think hurt churches when it comes to this.
Yeah, I do agree that because it's like a faceless entity, that's why people are not engaging. They want to follow people versus a brand.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to see churches utilizing their congregation more. Maybe it is making somebody the face of it, or maybe making a few people the face of the church. Like maybe it's a social media manager and he or she is always the person on camera.
Yeah.
So people know like, okay, this person is tied to this church.
Yeah.
And so I know if I'm going to get a question answered, or I like what you said, hey, Pastor so-and-so is going to be answering questions today. Like, what do you think? And he or she puts like a selfie of them as they're answering the question. That way it's like, okay, I know I'm actually going to get an answer from a person.
Yeah.
Even though you are getting an answer from a person, it's always nice to know there's someone on the other end trying to answer that question.
Yeah. I actually saw one church, and I don't know that this is like necessarily a great idea, but most of their posts were collabs with their social media manager. Like, that's kind of an interesting idea. I mean, obviously that makes sense because that was a person doing that video, right? But like, that made me more likely to comment because I knew that girl who posted that video. I'm commenting on her page as much as I'm commenting on the church's page, right? So like, I'm much more likely to comment. So I left a funny comment on it because I knew someone would see it, right? Yeah, I think there's huge value in, like, I'm like, could you even tag who posted a specific post? Like, this post from so-and-so, right? Like, that's an idea. I don't know if many churches will want to do that. Like, but I do believe there's value in, like, as much as possible, who am I actually talking to? Who is on the other side of this phone from me?
So you do agree with understanding your audience. That's like the biggest thing for you.
I think that's a hard part for churches. Is churches they have this mentality of, well, we're trying to reach everyone. Totally true, right? Like, of course you're trying to reach everyone. Everyone can come into your doors, right? But at the same time, knowing who it is that tends to follow you on social media is huge, because then you can create content for those people. And I find that the tighter the niche you get, the better the content you're going to create. I talk to a lot of brands about this, like companies that are trying to sell stuff, right? And they're like, for instance, one company creates these greeting signs, right? And they're like, we reach churches, but we also reach realtors. We also reach this. And so they're trying to create content for all of those things. And like, nobody's going to follow them because if I'm a church, I don't want to see content for realtors. If I'm a realtor, I don't want to see content for churches. So understanding who tends to follow you on social media and creating content. The crazy thing is like, you're going to reach more people. The more focused you get, you tend to reach more people than if you were broad. It's like this conundrum of marketing.
Yeah. I've noticed that too. Like, you have to, I think, just put content out for your target audience. And there will be people that aren't even fitting in that mold, but somehow they just still want to follow you. And that's cool. Yeah. But I think if you have an avatar, like I've heard of one person say, write down exactly who it is that you're trying to reach, their age,
what magazines they read. Well, nobody reads magazines, right? but like what YouTube channels they watch, what shows they love, like all of that.
Be very specific and filter every piece of content that you're creating with that person in mind.
Yeah, and you're not excluding people. You're not saying you can't follow our church on social media by doing that. You're just saying, I know that this content is always going to hit this person really well. And the cool thing is like, on social media, if I see content for my friend, I'm going to share it with my friend. Like, I have a friend who like smokes a lot of weed, right? I don't.
Pass out the bag.
I don't smoke weed. I've never tried it. I never will. But like, anytime I see a post about weed, I send it to him as a way to connect with him.
Okay.
And that's what people do, right? Like, even if it doesn't apply to you, if you know someone it applies to, you're excited about it. Cause like, this is something I can use to enhance my friendship with that person. Right. So, don't be afraid of your content not hitting everyone.
Yeah. No, I also too, because of algorithms, things just pop up out of nowhere, so you just never know where your content can be. Yeah. Like, I saw another church post like a testimonial video about someone who was just on TikTok, and one of like the clips just popped up randomly. And that's literally how they came to church. Yeah. And they had never seen or listened to a sermon before. So you just never know. And obviously, yes, we want our clips to go and, and the algorithm do their magic and reach those kind of people. But if if you don't know what your target is, you'll never really reach it.
That's the thing, right? Like the reason it can reach that periphery is because Instagram's like, oh, this video is amazing, right? So we're going to send it to people just to test, to see if it goes well. Because the core demographic loved this content so much. The 20,000 people it might reach all loved it. Well, let's see. Maybe other people will like it. And so Instagram is going to reward you for creating content that kills with your audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yes, understanding your audience, but also understand them in a way that having like a Q&A or something isn't necessary. It's just we have a pulse on exactly who is the normal person that's going to attend our church.
And that brings me back to maybe something I should have said with your devil's advocate question, right? It's like, because my audience knows that I understand them so much, they are more likely to ask me a question because they're like, Jonathan gets me. Jonathan understands what it's like to work at a church. Jonathan has been in our staff meetings, is what I hear, right? Like people are like, dude, it sounds like you're in my staff meeting this week, right? Like that's exactly what we talked about. So the more you can relate to the audience, the more chance you have of getting that Q&A from them. And it's hard. Like it's hard to understand your audience, but that's where you use analytics. That's where you use insights, right? Like you see like, oh, this video popped off because they like this topic. This topic resonates with my audience. And I create this list. I have a list on my phone of the joke themes. I mean, obviously I make jokes, right? But the themes that always tend to resonate with my audience, and I just rinse repeat those because, and I'll still experiment and try new things, right?
Yeah.
But like I know if I create something about this topic, it's going to land. I think churches should do that too, right? Like what video has done well? And unfortunately for a lot of churches, they do a trend. And that's the video that does well. And that tells you nothing about your audience. They like it when I jump into chairs, right? Like that's not understanding your audience. That's just like everyone likes that, right? Everyone likes to see someone in pain, right? But so a topic, try something, try a topic, see if it works. It doesn't work, try a different topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the reality is when it comes to social media, just because you grow on social media doesn't mean you're going to grow numerically in your church, or doesn't mean you're going to grow spiritually as a congregation. And you have to just understand that and know that, because a lot of people, I think when they get into a position of creating content for a church, maybe they're starting off and like, I think the number is a clear indicator that there is growth, but you have to understand that followers don't really equal people growing in their faith, and
that'll preach, man.
Ooh, come on. But I think honestly, we just have to just keep creating content and know that the byproduct of you creating content will be growth eventually, but all you can control is what you can control. And it's you creating content for the church, showing the life of the church is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And understanding what your church is unique with and post that.
Yeah. Your goal is to create content that gets paid attention to so that people are in the habit of paying attention to you. So whenever you have some content that like, hey, we really need to ask you for something, or hey, we want to ask you to invite someone, people are paying attention to you. They're or when you're asking a question, right? Like, hey, give us a Q&A. What do you want to know? What do you want our pastor to answer? They're in the habit of saying, oh my gosh, this is the content I engage with.
Right. I think a good place to start too, for if you're wondering like, where do I even start? How do I create like what kind of content? I think look at your church's mission and vision statement, because that's literally what they're basing their entire like organization around. So their sermon series are around that. The way they're staffed is around that, like everything. So some churches, they're more, evangelism, right? Like they want to go reach people.
I would challenge that, because most churches' vision statement is reach in, reach out, reach up, or love God, love people. So what's your actual vision statement?
Yeah.
And like not the one that's on the doors or the one that's under your logo, but like what does your church do differently than other churches, and why does it do it?
Yeah.
That's what I would challenge you with, is like, so, our church, reach in, reach out, reach up, right? But like really what we do is we focus on worship, and we're into like this type of worship, right? That's really what your vision's about. Or really what we do is we are evangelistic primarily, right? Like that's what we do. And yes, we value the other things. We value loving God, loving people, right? But like this is what we tend to do. This is our unique DNA.
Right.
I think a lot of churches aren't self-aware enough to discover that. And you have to like do some like soul searching, right? Like what are we actually doing? And it's usually led by your pastor. It's what your pastor finds the most valuable. And sometimes what your pastor says is not necessarily what their passion is. And so you really have to know your pastor well enough to know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like really just playing to your strengths, because if I'm creating content for like upper room, I know I'm going to focus on the worship piece of it more because
Yeah.
that's what they're strong at, versus somebody else that maybe their pastor's a really good communicator. So I'm going to focus on trying to highlight him more and figure out ways to get his voice out there even more. So
Yeah, like Fellowship Church is like they're trying to like shock you a little bit, right? Like not in like in a vulgar way, but they're trying to be like attention getting. So that's what they're going to create. Elevation is Furtick, right? Like it's his like Southern gospel like approach to preaching, and that's going to be their style of content.
yeah. Yeah. So it's figuring out ways to highlight your uniqueness as a church. And then, like you said, just putting a pulse on that. Maybe you're still unaware at trying to figure out what that is, but maybe having a conversation with your pastor on like, what is it do you feel like we're strongest at, so we can highlight on social media even more,
or even talk to some of your people and be like, what made you choose our church over another church? And a lot of people will say, because my friends go here, right? But like, especially maybe newcomers that have maybe come that don't necessarily have friends there, like, hey, what did you love about our church? And they'll probably say something that you didn't realize was actually the thing that they love, that like, oh, wow, okay, so that's what we need to highlight.
That's so good. Yeah, because a lot of times you think it's one thing and then you hear conversations and they're like, oh, I really like the way I was greeted when I walked in. Yeah. Oh, well, dang. How do we highlight that on social media then? Because people want to see that first before they show up. You know?
A lot of churches think they're welcoming churches, and then you find out like, oh crap, we're not welcoming. Like we have a welcome team, but like nobody says hi to you, right? Or like, we think that like, oh, our people love to worship. Where they're like, dude, can we just get the music over with so we can get to the message? Like you don't know until you talk to people.
Yeah.
And be willing to let them tell you, like create the conversation in such a way that you're not like leading them to what you think that you want them to give you. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what about creating content around like sermon series? Do you like that? Do you not like? And what I mean is, their whole Instagram turns into like a branded look for the sermon series.
For me, branding, I think, is one of those terms that has ruined churches on social media, because we think branding is visual identity. So everything has to have green in it.
Same color scheme.
Yeah, everything has to have our logo under it. That's not really what branding is. That's just design. Branding is your reputation, your personality. So showing the personality of your church. So you could, in essence, have a different personality for a sermon series, right? Like the vibe, the feel is like edgy, right? Like we're doing an edgy series on relationships. And so you could start making your content edgy, or overly romantic, almost exaggerated romantic. That would be like a vibe. I would say that's better branding than making everything green or everything have your logo. So like we're in a series on relationships, and we're doing like, toxic red flags. So all of our content should be about red flags of relationships, right? Like that would be really good branding on social media. And it would be really good because it gives you a focus of your content. Like we're always going to create content that's about like what it's like to deal with a toxic person in a relationship. I would watch that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes like you said, it's more visual, but how do we make it cohesive to where it reaches all kind of aspects of the church? So it's engaging your people to ask, maybe it is a certain series on, like you said, relationships. Instead of just posting like a heart, because that's the theme of it, whatever, ask your people about the series, or, have videos where they're talking about what they liked about it, or maybe it's about marriage. Hey, what are some things that you feel like has helped your marriage, or
Yeah, think about your favorite influencer. What content do you expect to see from them? It's usually about a topic. It's about a vibe about them. You don't expect to see their logo. Like you don't care. You don't care about their logo. Like you want to see what they're about. And I think that's the same with your church. They don't want to see your branding. They want to see what you're about.
Yeah. Yeah. So the main focus on how to create better content, come up with ideas is just knowing your church, knowing the culture, knowing the language, and from that should stem everything else. Because if you have a pulse on like where your church is and who they're trying to reach, ideas should be able to come no problem.
Honestly, that's it. Like the tighter and maybe for 1 month you focus on one person. Like literally think of a person in your church. Like this girl goes to our church. She's a 20-something. She follows us. She's one of our like biggest fans on social media. I'm going to create content for her. You're going to kill it. And then next month choose someone else. You could essentially do that, and you would probably do really well on social media.
That's good. Yeah. Cool. Well, hope you enjoyed today's topic of discussion. And
If you got questions, drop them below. We'll answer.
yeah, maybe we should do a Q&A.
We should.
Well, other than that, we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.